Joining us is Dr. Dwayne Elmore, Wildlife Extension Specialist. Well, Dwayne, today I wanted to talk a bit about managing moles and gophers in the landscape. And, as the summer comes on, these tend to become quite a problem.
Yeah, get a lot of calls and complaints about moles and gophers, and a lot of times people confuse the two. They're really only similar in that they're both foraging or burrowing animals, but beyond that they're very different. Moles are insectivores, so they're eating earthworms and grubs, and are actually pretty beneficial to have in the landscape, and they aerate the soil, and they usually dig very shallow, so their runs are visible. But gophers, on the other hand, are going to be found in more loose soils, sandy soils, not generally in clay, and they're herbivores, so they eat a lot of plant material and cause much more damage in general.
Yeah, when you see an area damaged by them, it's very, very obvious.
Yeah, and they make the big classic mounds, the gophers do, and you typically don't see the runs, the tunnels themselves. You just see these areas where they've pushed up large areas of excavation, and it's pretty unsightly.
So when it comes to managing these, we kind of have two broad options: trapping and poisoning. Yep. Correct? Yep. Let's take a look at some of the tools.
Okay. The one thing that a lot of people want to use is something like a toxicant, and Zincphosphide is probably the one that I would recommend. It's not quite as hard on non-targets, so if an animal comes along and eats a mole or a gopher that's ingested the Zincphosphide, like a dog or a cat, they would have to ingest a lot to cause harm. But still, if you're going to use these, you need to make sure you put the pellets actually underground. They're not to be put on the surface of the ground. First of all, the mole or gopher wouldn't find them anyway,
right.
So you've got to put them in the runs, in the actual burrows. And then you really need to check every morning to see if any of the gophers have come to the surface and died. And if they have, dispose of those properly so that a neighborhood cat or dog doesn't ingest them, because there is potential for non-target.
Okay.
And then the trapping is what I would recommend is the preferred option, because it's very selective. If you put it in a run of a mole or a gopher, you know what you're going to catch. You're going to catch one of those animals, and they're really easy to trap, and generally you can get them within a night or two.
Okay, and what kind of trap do you have here?
This is a grasping trap, and it actually, there's different models, but the basic premise of most of these is that the animal comes in from this side, hits the pan, which releases these prongs, and it quickly will suffocate or break the vertebra. And it's really humane and quick, and they're cheap. The downside to this type of trap is that it's one directional. In other words, the animal has to come in from this side and hit the pan. If it comes in from the back, it's not going to trip it. So you have to put these back to back like such.
Okay.
That's the only way they would work, because you don't know which direction the animal is going to come from.
And this works for moles and gophers?
It does.
Okay.
And there's another type called a harpoon trap that a lot of people like, and they work good too. The nice thing about them is that you just, instead of putting the trap actually in the burrow, the harpoon is above the surface,
right.
So they're easier to set. There's a few more mechanical parts that might fail, but in general they both work fine, whatever you prefer.
Okay. Well, can you show us how to go ahead and set these in the run?
So you just push this down and make sure this little arm is under this bar, and then pull up the pan. Put both prongs underneath like so, and then it's set.
Okay.
So when the animal comes in, that's it.
All right.
So once you have them set, you need to find an active burrow. So try to find something that looks fresh, not an old one.
Yeah, one that's the loosest. You can tell when you compare them that one looks a little bit more the soil on top's looser, hasn't been there as long. And
for moles, that's really easy because their tunnels are exposed. For gophers, you need to go to an active mound, one that has fresh digging, and use some type of rod or stick to probe around until you'll feel the opening.
Okay.
So when you find that opening, go 2 or 3 foot from that mound, and that's where you're going to want to excavate. Use a spade or something to excavate carefully a small hole just big enough to put these traps in. And once you have them set, you put them back to back actually, and make sure that the actual opening is open, because you don't want that animal to hit soil and think, oh, something's not right, and a lot of times they'll just plug it and back out. So make sure that's open, and put the traps back to back, and you can secure them to the surface with the string, but you really don't have to do that.
Okay.
And then we don't want to put this soil back in on top, because
Right.
it's a lot of times an animal will come and hit that disturbed area and they'll back out. So we just want to cover this opening with something like a board that will not let sunlight in. They don't see very well, but they do have good vision for light. So we don't want any sunlight, you know, coming in and letting them know that they would think a coyote or something has dug them out. So just cover it up like that and check it once a day.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Dwayne. You have some good resources available to help people learning how to manage wildlife as well.
Yeah, we produced this video last year, and it covers moles, gophers, and armadillos, lots of things that people have common problems with in the landscape. And so this is available on our website, or you can contact your local county extension educator.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of their activities in the coming months. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.